Hello and welcome to the Girl That Went For It podcast. I'm your host, Johanna Scholz, also known as Johanna Liana on Instagram, and author of Believe in Life, How to Dance in the Rain. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Johanna_Liana, for daily content. And now enjoy this episode. Before I dive more into this episode, I just want to say that I am talking a little bit about grief. I wasn't planning to, but as I was talking about my experience, that topic somehow came up. So if you're going through grief right now and this might trigger you, maybe save this episode for another time. But other than that, I hope you enjoy this episode and you can take something out of it. Welcome back to today's episode. It's so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. You might have read the title of this episode and thought, okay, I want to know more about this. And this is a common question I get asked when it comes to moving overseas, and that is dealing with guilt. Feeling guilty of leaving loved ones behind, feeling guilty of leaving your parents behind. And today I want to talk about this topic a bit more because I know that this is a big one, and I know that this can hold us back from achieving our dreams. This could hold you back from moving, whether it is moving overseas or to a different city, country, whatever it is. So I hope this episode will help you. If your dream is to move to New Zealand, if you, like me, traveled to New Zealand and fell in love with the country and always wanted to figure out if this is the place where you want to grow old, but you don't know where to start and you want to hear more about my story, about how I did it, about my journey, I created an online course, Moving to New Zealand. I will take it below with 3 modules. The first module is about my journey, like from my first travel to New Zealand, 2014, coming back, feeling literally depressed and falling into this hole, trying to get out of there and holding on to that dream, making it happen one day, to 5 years later, 2019, going back to New Zealand. I'm talking about all the visa stuff. I am sharing tips on how to reframe your mindset to make this move happen. You can find the link below, and I hope this will help you because I know how overwhelming it can be. I wish I knew someone who did what I wanted to do and that I could ask questions, that I could learn more about their journey. So feel free to sign up to my online course. You find all the details in there. Like, I spent hours on the immigration website. I spent hours trying to figure out how it's going to work, how am I going to make it work. I spent hours on my mindset and so on and so forth. So I put this all together, my experience from the last 10 years almost, yes, into this online course that you can watch and rewatch anytime. But without further ado, let's dive into today's episode and chat about guilt. Guilt is such a big emotion and can really weigh you down. And when I moved to New Zealand, I was dealing with guilt as well. Of course, I thought of what's going to happen to my parents, or kind of like, is this selfish if I go and move to the other side of the world? Is it selfish if I go and follow my dreams and leave my parents behind? So yes, I had these thoughts too, but today I want to share how I've overcome them and where guilt is coming from and how you can deal with it. First of all, I want to say here that this guilt that I felt and that you might be feeling comes from love, because you feel guilty of hurting someone that you so deeply love. And it's beautiful to see it that way. And I wanted to mention it here. It comes from love, so we can change our perspective around it. But I also want to remind you that it can become a burden, and that it can hold you back from following your dream. So firstly, I want you to get clear on that guilt comes from love, which is beautiful. But then I also want you to ask yourself, is this guilt that I'm feeling, is it the truth, or is it just an assumption? Am I assuming that if I do something, I will hurt the people that I love? Is it just a scenario that you come up with? Because let's be honest, we're really good in coming up with our own scenarios in our head, and we often can think of a million things that could happen or that people may or may not think and stuff like that. So I think a really important question always with any thoughts that we have, with any negative thoughts as well that we have, asking ourselves, is this the truth, or is this like just an assumption? Is this something that I'm making up? What I want to say here is sometimes we make these assumptions that we might hurt someone when we do a certain thing, like moving overseas, but we never actually ask them how they're feeling about it. Because here's one thing, with my parents, I of course as well thought I'm going to hurt them. And yes, it wasn't easy, and I know it wasn't easy for them, but communication is key. And even the other day, I had a conversation with my mum about it, and my mum was like, I'm just so proud of you for being like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move to the other side of the world. I'm going to figure out if this is what I want for the rest of my life. My mum just told me how proud she is that I made the move. And I think like communication is always key. Just talking openly about it with your family and friends so they can understand how you're feeling and why this is so important to you, why you have to try and make this move or figure it out, so they can understand you, but you can also understand them. And maybe you are in your head like having all these guilt feelings and negative emotions, but once you talk about it with your parents, they're actually like your cheerleader, and they'll be like, yes, go and do that, follow your dream. You know what I mean? And it's like so sad sometimes that guilt is holding us back, but it's just an assumption that we have. Yes, of course, there's also scenarios where parents might be sad and will share this emotion more with them. Maybe my parents didn't share it as much and were more encouraging than other parents. And that's also something that we have to remember to communicate and have open conversations about. I also want to say here that I'm pretty sure that our loved ones want us to be happy and succeed and achieve our goals. If they are not, if they don't want us to do certain things because of their own feelings, I think it's important to put yourself first. This might sound bad because I've never experienced it, so I can't really talk from my experience, but if someone is holding you back from achieving your goals, for example, a partner, I can actually talk from that experience in the past, like when I was still in Germany, actually 10 years ago. There was someone who was trying to convince me that my dream is not my dream, or that it won't be as great as the first time that I went to New Zealand. Like, he was really trying to talk me out of it, which I now understand. Like, of course, he was scared of losing me, and it was, I think, a really selfish way of that person to try to talk me out of my dream, just because of what was best for them. Like, back then, it didn't mean for me, like, I go back to figure out if I could live there, that I would have broken up. Oh my gosh, this feels like a lifetime ago talking about this. But anyway, just keeping it real and sharing my experience. I think that was just really immature and selfish of trying to talk someone out of their dreams and making it sound so unrealistic, that I'm so proud of myself for, at that age, I was 18 back then, like really young and also still kind of insecure in some ways. And I'm so proud of myself that I held on to that dream and didn't let that person talk me out of it. But also here, I just always want to remind you that when there are feelings and emotions involved, you always have to try to come back to your core emotion, to your core feelings, or to your values, like what's important to you, how do you picture your life. And communication is key in talking about it with your parents, if guilt of leaving parents behind is a thing, and just communication and just talking openly about your feelings and understanding their feelings. And as I said, sometimes we are assuming that people will be sad or whatever, but maybe they are just really, maybe they're really happy for you. And yes, like I said, you get these people that try to hold you back and trying to talk you out of it, but that could be their fear, their emotions, their reality, and you have to choose for yourself, what is my reality? What am I willing to sacrifice if I don't do it?
or sacrifice if I do it. One thing that I want to say here is that we are living in a time where we have FaceTime, which is amazing. I remember 10 years ago when I went to New Zealand the first time, it was still Skype. I think there was no FaceTime back then. So I would Skype my parents. Now it's even easier to just quickly FaceTime or WhatsApp FaceTime someone. Like, you don't have to make sure they're both in Skype or whatever. You can literally just pick up your phone and FaceTime them. So I feel like we're living in a time where staying connected is so easy, and so that's just such an amazing thing. And with the guilt, yes, I've been feeling guilty of leaving my parents, and especially on holidays. Like, I remember the first Christmas, I know it must have been really, really hard for my parents, because it was not just me who wasn't there, it was my brother who wasn't there anymore either. So yes, I felt sad as well and guilt, but I feel like one thing that helped was just to FaceTime, to talk about it. I'm going to say communication over and over again here. But I think another thing that will help, like once you move overseas, for me, is starting to make traditions. So, for example, we FaceTime on Christmas Day. Like, our Christmas morning in New Zealand is their Christmas Eve, so we FaceTime at that. Every year we FaceTime. We FaceTime a lot anyway, or like once a month or something. But definitely on Christmas Day we FaceTime. Another thing I want to say here is that when you move to the other side of the world, or wherever, if you move to a different country, city, yes, it is a change, but it doesn't mean that you don't love your family that much. Like, honestly, I feel like some people have this perception or this thought about, when I move to the other side of the world, it doesn't mean that I am close with my family or love my family. Honestly, I love my family so much, and they know it. And I feel like if you talk about it with your family and friends, that you really want to make this dream happen, but that this doesn't mean that you don't love them, they understand. They probably didn't even think that. So I bet your family didn't even think about this, like, oh, she must be moving because she doesn't love us. I don't think that your family would think that. I think your family will be proud. Like, I mean, my family was like sad, of course, but then as well proud on the other side. I mean, I can just talk from my experience here, so maybe you can take something out of it, take out whatever you want, and take out the perspective that you need. But yeah, I just want to say here that just because you're moving overseas doesn't mean that you don't love your family. And I feel like sometimes we might have that thought that our family might think that, or people might think that. Honestly, I'm from a small town, small village in Germany, and I don't even want to know what people were talking about. Like, I don't even want to know what people thought about me when I moved, especially the time that I moved and make the decision to do this. The thing is, okay, this is a bit of a personal story here. The people that made comments, I know that there were some comments, and I could kind of imagine, again, this is an assumption, what people might have thought, but that didn't hold me back. But the thing is, those people didn't know how long I've been waiting to make that move. And I wish I could sometimes tell those people that made comments, but then I also don't care. But if you think back, so I came back from New Zealand the first time, 2015. And since then, I wanted to go back. Since then, I was waiting for the day that I can finally return. But life happens in between. Unpredictable things happen. I don't want to go too deep into this, but my brother had cancer, and he passed away shortly before I was planning, or I had booked my flights to New Zealand. I rescheduled my flights, or rebooked my flights to stay a bit longer with my family. But I knew that I had to go on this trip, even if it was just for a few months. Like, I mean, my intention was to stay in New Zealand, but also when you move through grief, fresh grief, losing your best friend, your brother, who has always been by your side, I just felt so numb, to be honest. But I also knew that I had to go on this trip, because one thing was I promised him that I will. But I also knew that it would heal me in every possible way. It would heal me through my grief. It will heal me through the pain that I had for so long because I wanted to go back. And of course, there were doubts I was worried what other people might think of me in this small village where everyone talks. She's leaving her parents all alone, and she's going and she's gonna disappear to the other side of the world. I could imagine that people were thinking that, saying that. And I even heard from some people people said that. And then all I can think of is those people don't know my story. Those people don't know the conversations I had with my brother, with my family. Those people don't know the bond that I have with my family, the relationship I have that I'm so, so thankful for. Like, I don't wish this on anyone. And I wish things would have been different. Like, honestly, I never in my life would I think that my life would go this way in the bad parts. But life is unpredictable, and this is just a little background story about my life and the doubts that I had and what people might think, and also, again, feeling guilty of leaving my parents behind in that period. But we had conversations about this. We communicated. I told them what I need to heal. Everyone goes through grief differently. Sorry, I wasn't planning talking about grief, and I hope I might do a disclaimer at the start so it doesn't trigger someone who's just going through this. But I talked to my parents about this, and I experienced grief this way the first time. So I had to figure out, okay, how do I function? How do I have to move through this? How do I heal? And the same with my parents. They're two totally different people who work together so well, but they're also both dealt with grief differently, and we all had to figure out how we can help each other. And I think they understood that for me, following my dream, going to New Zealand, filling up my cup was the way how I had to deal with it. Finding joy and happiness, that was how I had to deal with it. And so it's just a little background story, but I just wanted to say here again how important communication is, and that often guilt that we have comes from love, the love we have for the people that are like our friends and family, and just communicating how you feel and openly say, hey, I feel guilty if I do this. I feel guilty of leaving you behind, but I really need to do this. And I bet like the people that love you understand. I know that some people might not have conversations about emotions and feelings. Some family constellations don't talk about feelings, but maybe you can be the change and you can start talking about your feelings and emotions and start making a change in your family constellation and talking about emotions, feelings. I also, on this point, want to say something that might be a bit harsh, but you are living for yourself and not for others. Just ask yourself, are you living your dream or someone else's? I feel like sometimes we can feel pressure to live in a way that makes others comfortable. But at the end of the day, it is your life. Here's just a little reminder. Living fully means living for yourself, not for others' expectations. You can live and honor your family, but still follow your own dreams. It's not an either or choice. Following your dream, moving overseas, doesn't mean you don't love your family. Here, I also want to say, like, you can find balance. Balance is possible. Just because you moved overseas doesn't mean you abandon your family. It doesn't mean that you can't visit them at home. It doesn't mean that you can't call them. It doesn't mean that you can't stay in touch. It doesn't mean that you can't celebrate their birthdays. Like, that's not the truth. You can do all of that. You can go back and visit them. You can start a little savings account for your trips back home. You can call them every day. You can call them every week. You can make it a thing to have catch-ups on Sundays or whatever. There is a way to find balance. One thing that really helped me since I made the move is gratitude. What I'm grateful for in life, talking about this with my family, what we're grateful for. Like when we FaceTime, sometimes we reminisce old times, childhood and whatever, and we're just grateful for the time we had together and also grateful for the time we're going to have together. I'm so excited for my family to come over, and I'm going to travel, or like they're going to stay here in Hawke's Bay with us, but I'm going to also go away with my parents for like a week or a bit longer than a week. And I'm just so grateful that I can do that. And I'm so grateful and so excited to show them the beauty of New Zealand. And yeah. To end this episode, I just want to come back to what I said at the start, that guilt comes from love. And instead of letting guilt weigh you down, reframe it as a sign of the love you feel for your loved ones and the connection you feel. It's okay to miss your family. And like I said as well, like just because you move overseas doesn't mean that you don't love your family or that you don't want to be close to them or that you don't want to be in touch with them or whatever. It is just simply meaning that you follow what might be meant for you. You follow your dream. You follow and figure out if this is what you want. It simply means you are living your true self. I really want to encourage you, if moving to New Zealand or moving to a different country or moving to a different city is your dream, to have those conversations with your loved ones, to talk about your feelings and to maybe make sure that you don't come up with certain scenarios in your head and at the end they're actually just really proud of you for doing this move, for deciding to see different things like moving to a different city, country, whatever. So here's your little reminder to have this conversation. And last but not least, if you want to learn more about my story, if you want to learn how I did it, like the steps that I took, how I changed my mindset, how I applied for my visa, and so on and so forth, I'm going to tag my New Zealand course below that you can sign up to and have access to and can rewatch anytime. And I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening. If you have 1 minute or even 30 seconds and you could just simply like this episode or leave a review, that would mean the world to me because it helps me to create more free content for you.